6:30 p.m. on Monday, April 28th. I'm going to call the Charter Review Commission to order. First up is approval of minutes.
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry.
I was getting them all ready to say here.
Roll call. Jennifer?
Herval.
Here.
Knight. Ford.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Villalobos. Walsh. Glickler.
Here.
Kirkwood.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Item number 2, approval of minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from April 14th? Do I have any
I
chance?
move to approve the minutes of April 14th.
I second.
Okay, we have a first by Ms. Knight and a second by Ms. Ford. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. All right, moving on to item number 3, citizen comment period for the Charter Review Commission. We welcome any comments from the citizens. And at this time, I only have one public comment form from Mr. Howard Connell. Connell, okay. All right, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow citizens. I am here tonight not because I didn't have anything else to do. I'm here because I still have a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope that this city could be made better through cooperation with the citizens, working together with folks like you. I give you a lot of kudos for doing what you're doing. Okay, I really mean that. And I really like it that you take it serious. I take it serious. I have a constant battle going on inside me about this city, and that is we got too much power consolidated in small pockets, which has led to a lot of nefarious activities, in my opinion, incidentally backed up by a lot of evidence. One of them is the shenanigan, I call it shenanigan, that the city council tried to pull last year with sidestepping the charter on free health care. They already had health care at their disposal if they wanted to pay for it. But they tried to pull a shenanigan, go around the charter, and leech from the citizens. I, along with 25 plus other citizens, stood out in the heat, in the streets, in the parks, trying to gather signatures to beat that catastrophic maneuver that was wrong. Tonight, I would like to ask you once again to consider the compensation part of the charter, which specifically says the salary is the only form of compensation that is allowed on the charter. Our council has tried to turn those words into pretzels and whatever else, and it doesn't hold water. So what I would like to urge you to do, the best you can, into putting something in the charter that requires anything beyond the salary for compensation be put to the vote of the citizens on a ballot. After all, we're paying the bills, aren't we? I think it's only fair. And the other disappointment I have is that my understanding is that this council here, you make recommendations to the city council what to put on the charter. Well, how does that work when they have the ability to just poo-poo it? How does that work? How do you break that monopoly on the power over the people? It's outrageous. How do you break it? I can't figure out a way. We can't just keep waiting for good people to
Go ahead, finish.
show up and be on the ballot before we get our city cleaned up. We need to aggressively pursue it, and I look to you folks to do your darndest, your best, and I know you are. And you're swimming upstream like salmon, like we all are. But I'm in that quandary. I wish somebody could explain it to me. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 4, consider impossible action. Consider approval of recommended changes to Articles 9, 10, 11 of the city charter. Ms. Amy?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Charter Commission. This item is to review changes that were recommended at the last meeting. We did not have any changes recommended to Article 9 at the last meeting, so we're going to start with Article 10, and the first change is 10.04. It's kind of lower down than what's on the screen right now. And so this was to address the issue where the terms of planning commissioners were 2 years, but the maximum time that they could serve was 5, which is a little bit difficult. So the recommendation was to make it 2 consecutive 2-year terms, except that a person appointed to fill an unexpired term may then serve 2 consecutive 2-year terms. I think that is what you guys requested, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
The second one is 10.05. I think we ultimately decided to just add the 2 subsections to the bottom. So subsection J, which says that the Planning Commission may provide comments to the city manager on any proposed development agreements. And subsection K, that says the Planning Commission may take no action that is in violation of applicable law.
Ms. Knight?
Should this be in 2 separate motions?
It can be it's a single section, so it can be a single motion.
Do I hear a motion to approve the changes to section 10.05, J and K?
I move to accept the changes, the additions to 10.05 J and K,
As stated?
as stated.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments, concerns? No? All in favor, please say aye.
Okay, that's,
Knight and, Ms. Ford,
Ford was second.
sorry.
it's okay. We did not have a lot of changes last time, so that was it for section 10. Section 11, the recommendation was to move the last 2 provisions of section 11 out of section 11 because we thought that might be a difficult place to look for them, and put them in Article 13. And so at the bottom of this document, I've shown what section 11 would look like with those 2 removed, and then I provided language to move them to Article 13, although I would ask that we vote on that next meeting when we're bringing back the other changes to Article 13. And I did make a slight change to the wording in what's now 13.12 because I thought it made more sense logically, as opposed to suggesting that a park or swimming pool was a utility, to say, or other utility, and then separately, or any city-owned park or swimming pool.
I have a question. We had made a note that we were potentially changing the title of what was 1111 and what is now 13.12. Is that still a priority?
I think we were talking about changing the title of Article 11 altogether, and if we'd like to do that, we can. Or you can recommend changes to any of these titles.
The title to Article 11 had the word election in it, right?
The title to Article 11 was like, let me find it. It was franchises, public utilities, franchises, and contracts. And so I think "and contracts" was added to cover the last 2 provisions.
11.12,
Right.
right. And so if we remove 11.12, we could remove "and contracts" from the title of 11. That does ring a bell now. Public, yeah.
So that then Article 11 is wholly focused on our franchises, and these would move to 13, which is kind of the catch-all
Right.
at the end.
Commissioner Knight?
I would still rather see this in section 1,
Okay?
which addresses incorporation, form of government, and powers of the city.
If the commission would rather move it to 1, we can do that too. However the commission wants to do it. I went with 13 because it's the miscellaneous, and I figured if I was looking for a weird provision, I'd look at miscellaneous.
Yeah. I think it's important enough to have it up front. Because it says power. The council shall have the power.
I don't think I specifically agree. I think these items are so specific that having it in a miscellaneous section just makes the most sense.
And I agree with Commissioner Ford.
They'll be lost in general provisions. That's like miscellaneous. These are important, particularly if there's an election required.
As currently proposed, they will be the last 2 provisions in the charter. Obviously, when we talk about 13, we can adjust that when we get there.
So if we make those provision change, or we change those, then the table of contents will have to be changed as well.
Yes, that'll be done as part of the codification, assuming that all of this goes through an election and passes.
So if I understand correctly, these be separate motions, so this motion would be a motion to remove sections 1111 and sections 1112.
And
but-
move them to 13.
And move them in 13, but not move to accept them in 13 at this time?
Because I'm going to bring them back in 13 next meeting.
Right.
If we decide to do that.
So, as a technical question then, if we were to approve, the removal of 1111 and 1112, it would be subject to subsequent approval of 1312 and 1313.
You can absolutely do that, yes, sir.
All right, then I make a motion to conditionally remove sections 1111 and 1112, subject to discussion and debate over sections 13.
I'll
Can-
second it.
Can you clarify that motion? But you are making a motion to move it to 13.
I'm making a motion to move it to 13, but I'm making it conditional on the fact that if we come back to 13, we have to adopt them in 13. In other words, if we don't actually adopt them in 13, then this motion wouldn't be effective.
Then
It's a
they would stay on
conditional.
11 unless you later decided to move them somewhere else. Because once we finish 12 and 13, which we're doing today, the next meeting, we're going to bring back basically all of the red lines we've talked about and go through them.
Well, then maybe is the motion on this premature?
We can wait all together. I just wanted to get the proposed language in front of you. If we want to table this item and bring it back next meeting, we can do that.
I don't have a problem with your changes. I think that the best thing to do would be to table it until we discuss 13.
Could we go ahead and approve the rewriting of section
What's currently 11,
11 or 13
What's
or
cur-
1?
what's currently 11,
Point 12? I mean, I like the wording.
I agree with that.
Okay.
You just don't like where they're going.
Exactly.
Okay. Commissioner Knight, did you have something else?
Oh, no.
Okay.
So I move to accept the rewording of the
What is currently
existing
11, 11?
section.
Wait. We already have a motion here in a second.
And that's to postpone.
Was there a second?
Yeah, there was a second.
There was a
There's a second,
second.
okay.
So either they need to withdraw their motion,
I'll withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
okay? Commissioner Knight,
I would like to move that we accept the rewording of the existing section 11.11.
11.
All right, I'll second that.
okay? Any comments, concerns? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
And that is all the changes that we went through last meeting.
Okay, so we'll bring 13 back.
Well, we're about to talk about 12 and 13.
Yeah. All right. Okay, item number 4, is it 4.3 or what? Consider amendment to the regular schedule of the commission to choose an alternative meeting date for May 26th. I think that,
I propose that we wait 2 more weeks on that because we're now up to the last 2 sections. It's
Yeah.
6:45 now. I think there may be a strong likelihood we may not need that extra date. I'd rather not schedule it now.
I agree.
okay, so we're just moving, we
Table 4.3
table it?
for tonight.
Well, no.
You would just
you
move to
can't do
cancel the
that.
meeting, probably.
Could,
We just need to schedule the next meeting in June and forego the meeting
Is
in,
that what we're looking to do?
yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what we
So then
did.
it would be the second,
Okay,
Our
second
next
Monday
meeting is
in
May
June.
12th,
right, we have May 12th, and then after May 12th, it would be the second Monday in June.
which would be
Oh.
May 9th.
okay.
I think and then we'd have June 23rd.
The current goal, my understanding from administration, is to try to get this on the agenda for July 1st with council if possible.
So we
So if
have
that makes a difference in your recommendation.
Still have 3 meetings after this one.
That should be sufficient.
I think so.
I think so.
Well, we can,
We can always discuss this on May 12th, couldn't we?
Yes, and we could always call another meeting too if we ended up
Right.
canceling it and we
I
needed.
mean, I'm not that great with the rules of order, but whatever we need to do to say, let's talk about this on May 12th, that's where I think we
we're
can
tabling
wait.
it.
Okay, we want to table it.
Okay. All right,
I thought I was asking.
I'm sorry.
It's
That-
okay. It's
That is
okay.
what you originally proposed, but I just misunderstood you. I thought you wanted to cancel it. That's my fault, sorry.
Okay, so moving on to item number 4, citizen hearing. The Charter Review Commission is seeking input from residents regarding suggested amendments to the city charter. Do we have any members, or would you like to speak again, Howard?
I stand by my previous comments and my sincerity and my desire for a vote.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5, receive a report and hold a discussion and provide staff feedback on review of potential recommended changes to Articles 12 and 13 of the city charter. Amy? All right.
All right, good evening once again. We've made it to the last 2 articles of the charter, so it's been an interesting journey, but this is kind of where we are. Article 12 is about the ethics provisions that exist in the charter. So these are the sections I have listed. You can see I've marked 2 of them to talk about further. And since the first one's 12.01, I'm going to go ahead and transfer over to there. The reason I pointed to 12.01 is because we got some public comment at a council meeting recently, and it kind of got me thinking that this was something the Charter Review Commission might want to talk about the way the members of the Charter Review, the Ethics Commission are appointed. The way that they're currently appointed is that each council member appoints 1 member of the commission who is then confirmed by a majority of council. There's an argument that this makes the board inherently political because the ability of that commissioner to continue to serve depends upon the council member appointing them continuing to serve. Other than this commission that you're sitting on right now, that's the only one that we appoint that way. And so if we appointed it the way we do other commissions where they apply and it's just a straight majority vote, I think there was at least 1 person who came to a council meeting recently who thought that was a preferable option, so I just wanted to put it in front of you.
Did you happen to look at any of our other benchmark cities and compare budgets?
I did not. I'm not aware that this is a common practice, but I think commissions kind of all run the gamut all around in different cities.
Commissioner Knight?
I think that's potentially a good idea. I'm not sure the city council will vote for it. But since the city council is going to vote on the appointment of the people on the Ethics Commission anyway, it is still a political process. And I know in the past, I got to stop living in the past. In the past, it was put forth maybe to take applications and then have a lottery
Okay.
for whoever applied. And that is like the only way to take politics out of it.
So just check the applications to verify that they meet the requirements, they've lived in the city long enough, that sort of thing, and then draw
And then-
straws, and whoever gets the better straws gets on the commission, is that?
Yeah, and you
And that
pick
would-
7.
Would that remove a council vote completely, though? Isn't that the process for all the other boards currently?
The other boards and commissions, currently, the standard process is that the people who want to be on the board and commission, they apply. And then we review those to make sure that they comply with all the requirements. And then there's a kind of subcommittee that's usually made up of the chair of the board or commission, and then 2 members of city council. And they meet and discuss the applications and make a recommendation to the whole council.
I think the comment was made to take some of the, because I feel, some people feel that council, being a former council member, I appointed someone to that commission, that person may be somewhat biased.
So you're saying that if people just make an application,
Yeah.
then they select 7 from all the applications?
Yeah, because that seems more fair, or to the citizens, that's fair to them.
And I'm not saying I agree with it, but the other argument that I've heard for why it's political is that if your council member loses an election or resigns, you are off
Right?
automatically, whichever council member appointed you. And so from that perspective, if somebody really wants to be on the Ethics Commission, it's important to them that their council members stay on. These are just the arguments that I've heard. I mean, it's kind of up to you what you want to recommend.
Commissioner Knight?
As a former council person, if it was by application, wouldn't you want to pick someone who you would have picked if you only got one pick?
Well, you mean if it was,
I mean, you could go out and get the person you want to apply. Correct?
right, Glicker?
Part of this is also coming from my personal experience now. And I'm really struggling with it, and it may just be because I'm in a unique situation. So, the person who appointed me to this commission appointed someone to the Ethics Commission who never expressed any interest whatsoever in doing it. And he appointed that person because of what he thought about that person's ethics. And I'd like to think that, I mean, at the end of the day, one thing we have to recognize about our government is we're a representative government. We elect our council members to represent us and hope that they will do their best. And I realize that may be a little Pollyannish, and believe me, I've been in politics, so I'm not a Pollyanna about it. But these are decisions that, I never thought about being on the Charter Review Commission at all. And y'all know that I've been involved in Kyle for 25 years, which makes me older in Kyle stuff than everybody except y'all, but I'm teasing. But seriously, I did not know this would be something that would come up for me. I wasn't consulted about it. I'm happy to do it, and I believe I'm capable of it. And I think at some point in time, we've got to trust the people we elect to represent us and trust that they have their best interests at heart. When I found out who he nominated, I couldn't think of somebody better. And I am biased, but I'm not so biased that I can't see what it was. And that person didn't seek to be on the Ethics Commission either. And what you just said is another problem. If we take it out of the hands of the council members, they still have to, somebody's got to approve it. I mean, the Ethics Commission is so important that, if we set up checks and balances, and I'm speaking off the top of my head right now, but one thing that came up in my mind, Lila, when you were talking was, Commissioner Knight, when you were talking was, maybe a hybrid mixture may be a good idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, we're 65, 70,000 citizens now, and we still struggle to fill boards, and if you start telling the people on, who might be interested in being on the Ethics Commission about the work that's becoming involved in it as we grow and as we encounter issues, you're going to discourage people who have, look, I know Commissioner Ford would be happy to be at home getting ready for her next school day and being with her kids these 2 Mondays a month. It's not easy to get people to volunteer, and so you wind up with cross motivations. So I don't know where I'm at on it, but I just wanted to express that at some point in time, we have to trust the people that we elect, and if we can't, then we can remove them. And that's how the process has to work. And I'm afraid we just get bogged down in a few people. You know, I think to some extent we got to respect the process. And I'm not advocating for anything at the moment, but just maybe more thought about it, because there's always going to be political ties in some way, shape, or form. And-
Against all odds, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to have some inherent trust in our elected officials. That's how it works. However, I do feel that there needs to be some sort of fail-safe to prevent any undue bias in the case that something comes up that is perhaps not to the best interest of the city. We could talk about a lottery system.
I like the hybrid idea.
The hybrid idea
I
is
don't know
neat.
what that looks like, but I mean, I think that's probably a good compromise.
I just don't know how you would manage it.
I agree. It's a great idea in theory, but now what would it look like in practice? We've been talking about it for 10 minutes, so I don't have an answer now, and I may come up with one the more I think about it, but I feel like this commission, the Ethics Commission, is just too important to surrender any oversight whatsoever by the people we elected to represent us.
I agree. And maybe there is no change to be made right now, but the conversation is going. So if someone wants to put this in practice, put this theory into reality, then we'd be in a better position to entertain it. But maybe we don't make a decision right now.
Is there criteria around, if I want to appoint someone to be on the commission on my behalf, is there criteria based around that person, or is it, I can just say, Bob over here will work for me?
So under the charter, not particularly. The code has a little bit, but primarily the requirement is to be of good moral character. There are plenty of ethics codes that have more descriptive requirements than ours do, or ours does, but I think, I believe that was intentional to allow the council members the ability to appoint a person that they believed would be a good representative. I wasn't here, so I don't know the history.
Sure. Okay.
Commissioner Knight.
There is the caveat that while each councilman may get, their choice, they still have to be approved by the city council. And I have seen that happen before, not for the Ethics Commission. Oh, actually, it was the Ethics Commission. And 6 people voted no. We won't
That's how
name
checks and
names.
balances work.
I feel like that's rare, so it's interesting. And now I want to get the history from you on that later.
No, we don't want to do names. They're still living here.
Commissioner Glicker.
I've had a tiny light bulb on something. Is there any mechanism in which it's possible to propose the removal of a commission member at all? I'll start with at all.
Again, not in the charter. The ethics code does have some language about removal of a commissioner. I believe, and I'd have to go open the code because I'm shooting from memory right now, that it is mostly
I have it
related
pulled
to
up if you want.
Do you have it pulled up?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Jennifer's going to read it directly. That's better.
It says, members of the Ethics Commission may be removed from office for cause by a majority of the city council only after a public hearing of which the member was provided with the opportunity to be heard. Grounds for removal include failure to satisfy or to continue to satisfy the qualifications set forth in Section D, substantial neglect of duty, gross misconduct in office, inability to discharge the powers or duties of office, or violation of any provision in the Code of Ethics.
So it has to be initiated by the city council.
Correct. The person who appoints them does not get to just replace them because they want to.
Right.
I'm curious, what were the qualifications in Section D?
Qualifications says, members of the commission shall have good moral character and shall be residents of the city. No member of the commission shall be a salaried city officer or employee, an elected public official, a candidate for city office, or an officer of a political party or a member of a governing body of a taxing entity.
Thank you.
Again, now I'm thinking out loud. But I think if maybe there was a way to, that Ethics Commission member could be proposed for removal outside of the city council, that may be a decent check and balance, so to speak. You know, if we leave it to the city council members, it could always be like, well, I won't propose to remove your appointee if you don't propose to remove mine. But if a citizen with good cause, meeting the standards that, you know, could propose that somebody on the Ethics Commission, you know, should be removed, that may be one check and balance that we could put in there. I want it to be a little strict in terms of what would allow it to be raised, but I'm not saying take it out of the city council's hands entirely, but at least if you put it gave a little wiggle room, then if you started to feel like your council member wasn't representing you to the best of their ability through their appointee to the Ethics Commission, that may be something. I don't know if any other city does something like that.
Not to my knowledge.
Right.
I can benchmark all of this if that's something you guys want to do. Get an idea
I-
of what other cities do. I just wanted to have this discussion. Whatever you guys recommend is what you recommend. I just thought this was a good discussion to be had.
I'd kind of like to see if any cities out there have any other way of, or wherewithal to appoint the members to the Ethics Commission. I think it's very difficult because there is a perception when a council member makes an appointee that there could be some bias there. I hope that I chose someone that didn't have that bias. I did. Commissioner Knight.
No, you can finish, I'm sorry.
So I feel like if someone else has a different or another recommendation, or there is a city out there that does something different than what we're currently doing, then let's try to propose it. But I do understand the complaint. The complaint was made several times when I was on council, but that is the way it is. But there's also laws. Don't they have an ethics attorney?
They do.
Okay. All right. And is that ethics attorney have a specialty in ethics, or?
No, so a licensed attorney is the requirement. Licensed attorney that does not represent the city in any other matter.
Oh, so she doesn't have a background in ethics?
So that law firm has been handling our ethics for a while. And so
Okay.
but the charter requirement does not provide that the person, nor does the code provide that the person have specific background in ethics.
I could have sworn we had a law firm out of New Braunfels that specialized in ethics.
We did, I think it was Frank Garza.
Well, Frank Garza was.
Frank
the
Garza
new-
was city attorney at the time.
He was the city attorney, but he was the one that made the recommendation to use that law firm in New Braunfels. Commissioner Knight.
That might be something we want to add, that the independent legal counsel have, X number of, have some experience.
You know, I'm going to say the same thing I say about every charter provision is be careful how specific you get, because it's very hard to change. And if we end up not being able to get anyone to apply, then we don't have an attorney while we're waiting.
You just gave me an idea, though. One thing I wouldn't, and I think I agree with Chairwoman Herval in that I'd like to see a benchmark on both alternative options for appointing and removing Ethics Commission members. But one thing back to my previous rambling thought of an alternative means of removing someone, if it's an independent legal counsel, I think we should at least give some authority or power to the independent legal counsel to propose an Ethics Commission member for removal. Again, going back to, at some point in time, you have to trust the people who are doing the work for you. And if the independent legal counsel says this Ethics Commission member is off the charts here, and they should they should have the authority to propose it, not exclusive, but additional, I think, would be something I would be interested in seeing.
That's an option.
And one other thing I'll say, on behalf of all attorneys everywhere, we do have ethics, we're supposed to, and we can be taken before the bar if we're unethical in things we do. So they've got to do their job, and that might not be a bad second check and balance.
But isn't there specializations amongst attorneys as well?
There is, but it's a very minute classes, and then the percentages, as Amy is saying, okay, I'm board certified in criminal law. There's hundreds of thousands of criminal attorneys in Texas. 3% are board certified.
Okay.
You know, family law, I think, is even smaller. So, and I don't know that there is a certification for,
I'm not aware of a certification in ethics.
yeah.
I mean, we all take ethics every year, we're required to.
right, you're required to take continuing legal education, including 3 hours of ethics a year.
But I'm not aware of a specific certification in ethics. I think there
Okay.
are probably attorneys who do this sort of thing, but like any area of the law, you have to find one who's willing to come here and to do it for
Okay.
the pay that we're willing to pay. And so it gets, I don't say don't put requirements in. I'm totally fine with putting requirements in, especially things like how many years they've been licensed. I just worry that the more specific you get, the harder it's going to be to find somebody who's willing to do it. And one of the reasons for that is that we don't have a guaranteed minimum that we pay. So if we don't have a complaint, if we don't have a meeting, you don't make any money, and you have to go through this whole process to get appointed. So it's made it hard to get people to apply.
Commissioner Ford.
Madam Chair, can you clarify how the specification of an attorney with ethics background addresses the complaint of appointing and removing of commission members? How does that help? Or how would it help?
I just think if they have that background, then of course, you know, they would be able to better judge whether there were some members or a member that seemed biased or may have said something or done something that may not otherwise be notated or caught. I don't know.
Okay, that makes more sense. I just wanted to clarify why that was brought up.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other comments? Yeah, if we could just see some benchmark,
I can run it. I'll do our 10 cities, and I'll start looking around as well, like I did with the other ones.
And I'll add, I pulled up the Texas Board of Legal Specialization website. I mean, there's only 28 areas of law in Texas that even have a board certification, but one of them is administrative law. So, I mean, I think we could include language to the effect of, you know, preference would be given to a board certified attorney in administrative law.
Or simply, you know, someone who's required to have had experience with administrative law for a certain number of years, something along those lines.
Do you, as attorney to attorney, do you agree that's probably the one area of specialization that might come close?
Probably the closest.
Yeah. It's the practice of law dealing with the regulatory, licensing, enforcement, and adjudicative powers of local, state, and federal government agencies, including representing clients before administrative agencies, practicing law within those agencies, and handling judicial proceedings. I mean, it's,
But if we don't want to be limited to, say, the actual ones that are allowed to be board certified, and we
Right.
could say, you know, so many years of experience in administrative, municipal, or other government law, so that they're people who are familiar with how governments work and that
Yeah.
sort of information.
Commissioner Knight.
But if we just say a preference for,
Yeah,
then it's not a true requirement.
that's true. I mean, we could just say preference for.
yeah.
The question is, again, how much you want to require, and then just trying to make sure we don't require it that it's so narrow that there aren't going to be enough people that are willing to drive down to Kyle to come to these meetings and apply.
Saying preference for is permissive. We would like that, but it's not necessary, and that still allows us to cast a wide enough net to find someone who will do a good job.
Okay.
Commissioner Knight.
Are we gonna postpone this one and,
Well,
or she could maybe redline it?
I'm going to benchmark and then provide some options. I've done that on a few other provisions, and so I'll bring that back as a separate item next meeting with some different options based on what other cities have done.
I have some other things on one.
Okay.
A lot of them are questions. It seems like the Ethics Commission is like a quasi judicial board. Is that correct or not?
That is a difficult thing to answer.
Well, the Board of Adjustments is.
Right, in the sense that the Ethics Commission can make recommendations, yes, but most of the time those recommendations are either to city management or to council, and so then they're acting in an advisory capacity. Some of those recommendations are recommending that something be filed with the district attorney's office, so it's kind of a line, like it's kind of a hybrid, does a little bit of both. But they can't, the Ethics Commission cannot say vote to remove an employee and say that employee must be removed. They can vote to recommend removal of an employee, but they cannot force the removal of an employee.
Commissioner Knight.
That brings me up to my next question. There's actually more written here than there is for the Board of Adjustments, which I do know that that one is quasi judicial because they have the power to grant variances.
I will suggest that part of the reason for that is that there's a whole section in state law on what a Board of Adjustment can and can't do.
Right. But it does say the commission shall have authority and power to investigate complaints, gather and hear evidence, issue and enforce subpoenas to compel the attendance of witnesses and any evidence, to decide ethics complaints based on the information and facts submitted, to issue written opinions, verbal or written reprimands, and to admonish, and in appropriate circumstances, to recommend to the city council, blah, blah, blah. So it sounds to me like they have a great deal of power here.
They're
Although
definitely
at
greater
the
than advisory
beginning,
is usually what I use for this sort of board.
I think it's like second sentence, it says it should be established to advise the council on ethics policies and ordinance and to hear and decide complaints. I mean, how much, if they have that much power, that's definitely quasi-judicial, isn't it?
I tend to refer to this as greater than advisory. In some issues, they are purely advisory, in some issues, they are not. They advise the council on what should go in the ethics code. They don't draft the ethics code or approve it.
I have another, like, huge problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Is an ethics commission really, do they really have the authority under state law to issue and enforce subpoenas? Enforcing the subpoena could mean contempt and go to jail for 30 days.
I believe our code has a different enforcement for the subpoena, not jail.
But it doesn't say that. It says they have the authority and power to issue and enforce subpoenas. Blah, blah, blah.
That's correct. That is I'm going to guarantee you most ethics commissions in the state have the authority to issue and enforce subpoenas.
The charter overrules an ordinance. So if an ordinance says, oh, well, they only can do this under these circumstances,
Right.
then the city charter takes precedence. What does state law say?
Do you want me to cite an exact section of the state law? I can't do that off the top of my head. I can look into it and get back
Can
to
you
you.
look into that? Because I know that subpoenas are generally a really big deal. I mean, I don't even know if our municipal court,
Yes, municipal courts can issue subpoenas.
they have a judge,
Right.
right?
Municipal court does have a judge, that's correct.
We don't have a judge on this one.
If they're not subpoenas for jail time, what are they? Just,
Well, it would be if you ignore the subpoena, then there are potential remedies to your ignoring it.
Probably have to refer it to the municipal court.
That is potentially likely. I'm going to have to go look at exactly which section of the law this is coming out of and tell you what the penalties are in that section of the law, because I don't know off the top of my head.
okay.
I think that's overstepping the possibility under state law.
I find it interesting that you pointed to that provision, because my next question on this provision was the inclusion of recall as a potential punishment. And
No, it
I
says,
found that interesting.
They can recommend to the city
They
council.
can recommend to the city council recall.
And/or city manager, and I don't like this and/or.
I think it depends on, because the ethics code applies to every city employee as well. So if they made recommendations to city council about disciplinary actions to a lower level city employee, city council generally doesn't have the authority to do that.
Then that needs to be clarified.
Right. But I
Because the
think
way
that's
it's
why
written right
and/or.
now, the city manager could decide on a recall.
Right.
I mean, I understand with the city employees.
It's that line between council and manager, right? The council can't fire your lower level employee,
Well,
and the
maybe
manager
what
can't
we need
recall
there
council
are
members. So
two
it's-
sentences.
Okay.
That these go to the city council, and then the city manager deals with recommendations regarding employees.
Now, the reason I'm pointing to recall is because I think there's an argument that it's in conflict with the section that talks about when council can remove its own members. And so
I
I don't know
agree.
if we want to make changes higher up on that provision or down here, but I worry that there's a possibility for a conflict.
Commissioner Knight,
I have just like a lot of questions.
okay.
I'm sorry.
just keep going.
I don't understand, because I'm now convinced this is quasi judicial. They have a lot of power that's outlined here. What's the difference between a reprimand and,
An admonishment,
yeah,
those are defined in the ethics code specifically, and it also defines when you issue each one.
so,
So the ethics code basically took an interpretation of the charter and said this is how council will enforce this charter provision through a written reprimand would be appropriate in this situation, an admonishment would be appropriate in this situation.
but they can't do a censure.
Now, they could send it back to council and council could censure.
Commissioner Knight, just from a language standpoint, reprimands are more just more aligned to disciplinary, whereas admonishment is more just a verbal, you should not have done that kind
And I
of
want
thing.
to pull it up instead of guessing which one the ethics code interpreted to apply to which situation. So if you'll give me a minute to pull that up, I can explain it. Or if Jennifer has it up.
Yeah, it's section 2-278.
So 2-278 provides the different things that can be recommended upon a finding of a violation of the ethics code. The least difficult one is a letter of notification, which it says is the appropriate sanction when the violation is clearly unintentional or when the violation was made in reliance on a written opinion of either the city attorney or the ethics compliance officer. The letter of notification advises the person basically that they're found to have violated and directs steps to be taken in the future to avoid violations. The letter of admonition or the admonishment is appropriate in cases in which the commission finds that the violation is minor and or may have been unintentional, but calls for more substantial response than a letter of notification. And then the next one is the reprimand, which is when the commission finds that a violation has been committed intentionally or through disregard to the code. And that, if a copy of reprimand directed to an employee, city officer, council member, commission, shall be sent to the city manager and city council. A reprimand directed to an employee shall be included in the employee's personnel file. A letter of reprimand directed to an elected city official shall be transmitted to the city secretary and published in the city's official Hayes Free Press, official newspaper.
I was close.
So they're
then
like
after that, there's
publicly
the
shamed.
And then after that, there's the recommendation to remove from removal of employment. There is a letter of censure in here. Letter of censure is appropriate when they find a serious or repeated violation. Recommendation of criminal prosecution, and then finding a violation but no remedial action, which apparently is an option as well.
Darn.
Oh, and then recommend city council or city manager that action be taken in those sections. So they basically, they recommended the appropriate one, whether it's the city manager or the city council, what action to take.
Can we postpone this until we get,
This is to give her feedback.
oh, okay.
And we're not voting on this.
We're not
We've already
voting
decided
on
we're gonna
anything
benchmark
here.
it. So if you have other questions you want me to look into, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Now, I think, I just had a lot of confusion over what a lot of this meant.
I mean, one thing I can do is pull charter provisions across the state on
That would be good.
ethics commissions and just, I think we're gonna have some time next meeting and we can just put them up and you guys can look and compare and contrast, or I can send them out in advance to give you an idea of what you wanna look at.
Yeah, if you could send them out in advance, that would be great.
Okay, is that it for 12.01? I did expect this to be the longest section.
It's kind of messy. I can't read my notes.
Okay. I did not have comments on 12.02, but I'm happy if commission has any comments on 12.02.
I have one question. What's nominal value? And is that one gift of nominal value, or is it, and let's just say nominal value is $50, but I can accept 20 $50 gifts, or I can accept,
Typically, you're about right. Nominal value is
50.
about $50-ish.
Yeah.
It's not usually defined because it changes like everything else with inflation and
inflation should be about 100 now.
kind of what we, see. Because a nominal gift at $50 a few years back is very different than a nominal gift at $50 now. So it's difficult to say $50 and just leave it at that forever.
Is it cumulative? So if I give you $50 every week,
So the way it's
Or
written,
$20 every week.
I don't know that it is. We do have, again, more general language in the ethics code on, you can accept gifts, like if you have a separate relationship with the person and it's appropriate under the circumstances for, say, a wedding or a birthday, but it's not related to your service as a city employee, that sort of stuff.
I only have one more question on this. Does that include campaign contribution?
I think does not. I know it does not in the ethics code. I don't see where it says it does not in the charter.
How would we know if, other than trusting that they would report it, how would we know if a council member received a gift?
That's a very good question. Other than somebody who knows that the council member received a gift, reported it because they have personal knowledge of the gift being received, I'm not sure either. That could be discovered. There are probably a wide range of ways that it could be discovered, but
This seems like an honor system article.
There's a form they fill out every year too, isn't there?
financial disclosure form that's filled out every year by officers of the city. And it references, sources of income, property owned. I don't know that it would include a $50 gift.
What about a $100 gift?
When I was on council, there was a business coming in, and they made us all street signs with our name on it. I reported it. I gave it a value, and I put it on there.
Yeah.
So it just depends, like Ms. Ford said, is how honest, and, because you're leaving it up to the council person's integrity and ethics.
But,
Yeah.
but could we not add in here that if you receive a gift of nominal value, that you must report it?
I have a comment on the financial disclosure form. It says the name of each person, business entity, or other organization from whom the reporting party or his or her spouse received a gift with an estimated fair market value in excess of $100
Oh, it
during
is
the
100.
reporting
It is 100.
period, and the estimated fair market value of each gift. And gift means a voluntary transfer of property, including the payment of money or conferral of a benefit having pecuniary value, such as the rendition of services or forbearance of collection on debt, unless consideration of equal or greater value is received by the donor. And then it has excluded from this requirement are lawful campaign contributions, gifts received from family members within the second degree of affinity, gifts received among and between fellow city employees and officials, and admission to events in which the reporting party participated in connection with official duties. So it's got a $100 limit right there that they're supposed to report.
Thank you for being here, Jennifer. You always have all those things ready to pull up.
Say that last sentence again with their duties.
Admission to events in which the reporting party
admission.
participated in connection with official duties.
Oh, okay.
So say somebody's a speaker at a conference and their registration is waived because they're
Yeah.
speaking at the event, that
Okay.
sort of thing.
Okay.
And there's a report if it's over 100, was that correct? If the gift is over $100 or $100 and over, okay.
But no Super Bowl tickets.
I didn't see an exception for Super Bowl tickets. No.
Well, and I like it that it has like also fair market value, so it's not just.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, any other comments on section 12.02? No? All right, what about section 12.03, interest in city contract?
So I'm bringing up 12.03 just because there's a section that says that no city officer or employee shall have an interest in any contract related to the sale to the city of any land. And it does not have a specific exception for in cases of eminent domain. So I live here in Kyle. I'm a city employee. If the city needed part of my property for a road, under this provision, I'm not sure that I could sell it to them. And that seems a little bit concerning.
I like your proposed
Yeah.
change in the second bullet point.
I have a question. If a council member is a consultant for a developer, that council member has to recuse themselves at the time of discussion or to any discussion for any contractual obligations that the council may,
I believe you are looking at 12.04 or potentially back in Article 3.
oh, I thought it was, okay, I'm
Well,
sorry.
That's fine. 12.03 is more, if you have a direct or indirect interest in a contract itself.
Okay,
And I think you're talking about participation and deliberation of a decision in which you have a conflict of interest, which is 12.04.
yeah, okay.
My only concern about the bullet point that I wrote, so, I always rethink myself, is, if the city if we don't want to go all the way through the process of eminent domain and they just want to say, hey, we want to buy it from you and you accept the reasonable offer at the beginning. But I think if we make it maybe a broad enough exception where it covers property that could be acquired through eminent domain and through which they're following the standard process and, I'm not likely to make the city want to take me to a hearing to discuss my property value. But that might be my decision and somebody else might want to go through the hearing. Like I said, I just want to make sure that that if someone needed to expand the road in front of my house, that I'm not going to hold it up because there's this random provision in the charter that suggests that I can't be a party to a land deal.
I agree with you in principle. My one concern is that at this point in time, what are the limitations on eminent domain? There's so few now, whereas it used to be like, unless it was for a road or a highway or a bridge, the government couldn't take your property. And then 40 years ago, the Supreme Court changed all that, and now they can do it for legitimate business purposes, so how would you craft an exception? I mean, what could we require?
I could put something together. I could definitely include language that, under no circumstances would that be above fair market value for the property, to make sure that they're not giving the city employees a sweetheart deal,
Well, wait a minute.
something along those lines.
You would have to define fair market value because,
It's generally defined in eminent domain proceedings, but we can
Okay.
get into that as well.
all right.
I can craft some language to try to get around it. I just don't want this to be interpreted as they actually have to file the suit and take you to the special commissioner's hearing, because that's just going to cost the city more money when you might agree to a price.
Right. And I actually engaged in, much to my chagrin, in an online debate about this months ago, that sometimes it behooves the city to pay a little bit more than fair market value to avoid the legal proceedings of condemnation. As an example, I'm a commissioner on the condemnation, one of the potential condemnation commissioners in Hays County, which any property owner in Hays County is eligible to be. And me and two other folks were involved, going back and forth for 11 months, including 6-hour hearing, that ended up settling. And how much money were they paying the attorneys, and how much money are they paying us 3 commissioners for something that never went to a full-blown hearing? And so sometimes there is value in paying above fair market value to avoid attorney's fees, condemnation hearings fees, et cetera. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'll be in Judge Beth Smith's courtroom on another one that's got 3 commissioners plus I'm an ad litem, because the property owner and the utility district couldn't come to an agreement as of 5 o'clock today on an amount. And so how much more is it worth it to not have to go through that process? I don't know how you address that in the charter.
Yeah, I'm gonna play with it, and I'll bring you some suggested language, but I do agree with your logic on that. Anything else on 12.03?
Commissioner Knight.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's really a concern, but the last sentence, I mean, maybe it's a little redundant. It says an interest arising from job duties, compensation, or benefits payable by the city shall not constitute a personal financial interest.
You're also in 12.04.
Yeah. We're
Took
on
me a second to find
1203
you.
right now.
Oh, you jumped to 12
I did, but I reverted
But I think we're done
back.
with 12.03, so we can go ahead and jump to 12.04.
Oh, I'm ready to jump.
Okay, did anybody else have any other comments on section 12.03? All right, moving to 12.04. Back to where I was.
Yep.
So, said council member, potential council member, is a consultant for an entity that's doing business with the city. Of course, they recuse themselves from any vote or discussion during council meetings, but are they required to recuse themselves from any discussion?
Under 12.04, they are not. Under 3.08, which we've already discussed, they are, and under the ethics code, they are required to recuse from the moment that they know of the conflict, from any conversation, any deliberation, both at council and any conversation with anyone who would make a decision on that.
Okay, so if council is in executive session and they're discussing that item, they have to recuse themselves from executive session.
Right? They would not be able to participate in that conversation.
Right. Okay.
Do we need to update 12.04 so it's consistent across all
I
sections?
don't think it's inconsistent, I just think it has less detail. But that detail is in a charter provision. It's just in a charter provision in a different section, which perhaps when we come back next week, we can talk about whether we like that it's over here on its own, or we want it to be with the ethics sections, because maybe we wouldn't go look at Article 3 for an ethics issue. I don't know.
Okay.
And then 12.05 is on political contributions, if anyone has comments on that one.
What was your question on 12.04
Correct,
before we go?
12.04.
Mine, it was on the last sentence,
Yeah, so I think that's intended,
because our city council is paid,
right.
so they get compensation.
I think what it's saying, because it does apply to employees as well as city council members, is that you can't participate in a discussion that helps you differently than it does the public at large. But if, say, I'm in HR and I'm looking at the benefits options and I participate in the decision on which benefit company we use, that would impact me in a way that it doesn't impact the rest of the city, the rest of the public at large, because you don't get health insurance through the city. But it impacts me because I work here, so it's part of the benefits of my job.
Ooh.
Because, I mean, if the idea is that no city employee should be involved in the consideration of city health care benefits, then they're not going to get done, and then we're not going to offer them, and we're going to have difficulty getting employees, so.
I can see a lot of problems with, because it starts out with any interest arising from blah, 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 shall not constitute a personal financial interest. I think the example you just gave was an example of a personal financial interest.
Correct, but it's related to your job duties. So if you're in HR and your job is to review benefits proposals and make recommendations based on those proposals, that's a job duty. And yes, you do get a personal benefit from it because you're an employee,
That's right.
but as does every single other employee, and it may not be their job duties to look at those proposals.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on 12.04? All right, 12.05.
So that one's political contributions, if anyone has comments on that one.
Oh,
Can you just clarify what a subscription might look like? It says, no employee shall by any means whatsoever solicit or assist in soliciting any assessment, subscription, or contribution for a political party. Is that just like a monthly donation that would go to a candidate?
You know, I haven't analyzed what that word means in this context, but that does make sense, some sort of monthly, either monthly donation or maybe monthly subscription to a newsletter or something along those lines.
Okay.
It's gonna be something along the lines of a subscription to a political party newsletter or something to that effect, where they charge you for it. It's not as popular anymore, but once upon a time.
okay. Anything else? Did you want further clarification on that or not?
No, that's enough.
Okay. All right, moving on to section.
Oh, can we, I just was gonna throw something out for section 12.
Yes, sir.
In regards to, is there anything, and I couldn't find it in here unless I've missed something along the way, but anything that states that a city council member can or cannot leave the council and then go work for the city?
That is in the ethics code. It's not in the charter. There's a
Okay.
provision on officers and employees that leave the city and how long that it has to take before they can handle any issues that are in front of the city.
And is
Which
there
I-
a time
Which I
frame?
think is 2 years, if I recall correctly.
So if you leave the council, you can't work for the city
You
for
can't.
2 years?
Work for the city, that's not in there, no, sorry.
Okay,
I thought
okay,
you meant,
that's-
you can't
yeah,
work
that's-
for outside employment outside the city. For the city, no, there's not currently a
Okay.
provision.
Because I don't know that it's occurred, I'm sure it has in the past, but it's just a perception of, I sit on the council, I'm gonna be helpful in creating a job, and then I'm gonna get off the council and I'm gonna get that job.
We do have a former council member that is employed by the city right now.
Oh, okay.
We do.
And just from a perception standpoint, I was just gonna throw that up to see if
Yeah.
anyone else had a concern with that, or if I'm the only one. If I'm the only one, I'll just let it rest, but the perception is just, I don't know, from a
I personally, I personally felt like the ethics code, when I was on council, I was always told that if you wanted to do anything for the city, you had to wait a year. That way, any kind of projects, everything by then,
Cleared
that you
out.
had any knowledge of, or could be biased to anything, hopefully it was gone through the system by then. And so, and that included if I even wanted to apply to the city for employment. So something has changed along the lines. I don't know what it was or where it happened, but I am aware there's a former council member right now working for the city.
And I was thinking about a year as the time frame, but
Is that
again,
something we
I'm
would
just-
want to add to Article 12, or is that more of a recommendation for the ethics code?
believe.
I agree. I think it should be, and I think it should be in the charter.
You think it should be 1 year?
1 year.
Mhm.
Okay, I can put that in as a proposed 12.06, and we can look at it next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, Article 13, these are the sections in Article 13. I've only pointed to a couple of them. So I'm going to start by asking if anyone has comments on 13.01 through 13.05.
Commissioner Knight.
You, 13.01 through where?
13.05, the first one I have is 13.06.
I have just a stupid question on 13.03.
Okay,
Under reservation of defenses, okay, obviously not an attorney. The last sentence says, no such right, privilege, defense, or immunity may be waived except by the city council acting in a public meeting to settle or compromise a claim, dispute, or lawsuit. I think I understand that. I'm just not sure they're doing it.
that they're voting to waive the right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
the
'cause
purpose
that
of
would be
that-
like a settlement, correct?
Right, that's like a settlement, which is actually in 13.04 a little bit. But the purpose of that is basically only the city council can waive a, a defense. So you
Oh,
can't,
except by the city
right,
council.
so only the city council can do it, so that it couldn't be done by somebody without proper authority.
Attorneys don't know how to write in just regular English.
Oh, my goodness.
I actually took a class on that in law school, on how to write in plain English.
Don't get me started on my fight with Broadway Bank over a sentence. I wrote the simplest sentence in the world and they rejected a power of attorney because of it. Okay, legalese.
Okay, so that answered your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 13.0405?
I'm good with 13.05.
I'm good with them both.
Okay. I'm gonna give Ms. Knight a little bit of time. You good?
I'm good.
Okay. 13.06, public records. This is one of those paragraphs that's really wordy, and a lot of this stuff in here may be more appropriate for a time before technology. And so my suggestion is to simply reference Records Retention and Public Information Act sort of laws on how we maintain public records.
I think that makes a lot of sense because it's one area of the law that I know that the legislature seems to address and tinker with every 2 years. So all Public Information Act laws and public record laws and procedures are constantly updated by the legislature, so referencing them, saves the next charter review committee time.
And isn't the city adopting a new system for open records or public information?
No, we currently have a system for,
Oh, so it's in place? Is it new?
it's been here since I've been here, Jennifer.
2016, we've been using it.
Oh, I thought there was something new that the city manager was proposing recently.
We're doing government transparency website.
Oh, the
Wonder if
government
it's-
transparency website. Okay. All right. Commissioner Knight.
Oh, I was scratching my head.
Okay. All right, if nobody has thoughts on this, I'll just propose some reference to state law language and bring it back.
Welcome your proposal.
I think the next one I have is 13.08. So is there anything on 13.07, succession, which is a very interesting provision, but I did not have a recommendation on how to change it.
13.07. Go ahead, Commissioner
I
Knight.
only had one question. I mean, is it legal to have a quorum of 3 surviving members?
Well, I think that's in the event there was a disaster, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
it's likely intended to be the thing that causes certain members in the federal government to be in a bunker during the State of the Union sort of situation where there just aren't enough people left.
But there's that provision afterwards, kind of like, oh, if the president dies, then the vice president, then the secretary.
And that's in here. If they're not at least 3 survivors,
Yeah, I
you have to order
know.
in which
So,
they get filled
so
in.
you could actually just like immediately do a quorum of 4 by
You
going
could do
through
the same thing that,
list.
the problem's gonna be if there aren't any, and then you're gonna start getting to,
Then you wouldn't have 4 to appoint the next guy on the
You guys aren't
list.
concerned?
right.
Got it.
I mean,
Okay.
if you get to this point, I'm not gonna be concerned about the policy.
The government, Ryan.
That was part of my thought on this provision exactly, is I don't know how to recommend to make this better.
You're not worried about the Chinese nuking us, or?
No, we survived COVID.
I'm worried about who's running the city of Kyle, that's for sure.
Okay. Okay. All right,
Okay.
section 13.08, charter review.
This is about you guys. And this is basically the exact same thing I said about the planning commission. This provides that the city council review the charter every 2 years, and we'll have a charter review commission every 5 years. And so what would happen is, right now, we're having our charter review commission. You guys make recommendations, we take them to the ballot, the voters vote. And then in 2027, the city council reviews it again, and they can take it to the ballot and vote. And then in 2029, if the city council reviews the charter and takes it to the ballot, well, then our charter review commission that's in 2030 can't put anything on the ballot because you can only go on the ballot every 2 years. So my recommendation is to change this to something that is evenly divisible by 2. I said 6, I'm okay with 4, I'm okay with 8, but something that's evenly divisible by 2.
I wouldn't want to do this to someone
Commissioner
else
Knight.
for 4 years. I'd rather do it to them in 6.
Commissioner Knight.
The way this is written, and I understand why, it's like this, the city council shall review the charter every 2 years to determine if a change needs to be made. And I can understand that because things may come up, but I think that the citizens would be a little more comfortable if the city council reviewed the charter, and if an amendment should be considered, appoint a charter review commission.
Okay, so if the
And
city
they
council
can
wanted
just
to
go,
make,
I mean, the city council should say, don't go through the whole thing. Just do section
This is-
13.08.
so if it's just one section,
Or there might be 2 or 3, but,
but if there are major changes, you want them to appoint a commission.
and then every 5 years, do like a major review.
Or they could say.
Yeah, my problem is just the 2 versus 5, because there was a brief conversation last year about potentially putting a ballot proposition up in '24. And my comment to that was, if we do that, then we're having this charter review commission in '25, and we can't take anything to the voters until '26. And if that's what we want to do, that's what we want to do, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands, because they don't line up. If council actually did take something to the voters every 2 years, sometimes this commission would have to wait a year for theirs to go.
Well, and the same provision says that our term is 6 months, so I mean, there's no possibility of waiting a year. The other thing I would say too is that once we finish, I mean, we've been working hard at this for a couple months now.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing I think 4 years is too short. I think 5 years is too short, because once this, whatever recommendations get to the ballot, whatever gets approved, you want to see how the government operates under the revised charter. And I think 6 years is a good enough time to know whether what we've done worked or failed and needed to be changed. And I agree with your math. If you get to the point where something's on a ballot in 1 year and this commission's supposed to meet the next year, but nothing the commission does can get to the ballot for another year, you've just made the work of a commission in that middle year moot, so to speak. So I like your 6.
I also think that it's important to note, like, if something did come up, they could call one earlier. It's just no less often than every 5 years. So if they wanted to bring a major change 3-4 years in, they can call a commission.
Well, or they could just, we could put a provision in here that they call the previous commission back to order.
That sounds like a lifetime commitment.
Lila's face.
How about if every 2 years, if they want to make an amendment, they call it an interim charter review commission.
And then the actual one meets every 6 years, or?
I like that.
I'm not, 5, 6, I don't
Well,
care.
My issue is only the 5 not being evenly
Yeah.
divisible by 2. That's it.
Let's just say 6.
Yes.
6.
Okay.
yeah.
And then we can have the idea of an interim, short-term charter commission
Right.
to review recommended proposals from council and give comments.
Yeah. And that could be one meeting.
Right, yeah. My suggestion on that would be council says, hey, we want to do this, let's poll a couple of members from the public, they meet once, they say what it is and give it feedback back. If that makes sense to the commission. And then I don't have anything on 13.09, if anyone has comments on that.
Anybody? Nope.
Okay. 13.10, I know what this is intended to do, and I don't think that's what it does. So I want to make sure that that people know what this is intended to do, agree that that's what this is intended to do, and see if they want to change it so that it more clearly does what it's intended to do. In my opinion, what this wants to do is require every board and commission of the city to provide for the rules of an Open Meetings Act applying, whether it does or not. But what this says is that they'll comply with the Open Meetings Act. And compliance with the Open Meetings Act, to me, tells me that if a board or commission is not required under state law to comply with the Open Meetings Act, they don't have to, because they're complying with the Open Meetings Act. So I don't think that's what this is intended to do, but that's how I read it.
Commissioner Knight.
The original intent was to have as much transparency as possible in every, committee, board, commission, because there were some issues.
Now, I'm going to note that the city currently follows this as I believe it was
Yes,
intended.
and so that's
But
why.
in case that ever changed in the future, I wanted to note that I'm not sure that's what it does.
Yeah, the intent was that all of them comply with the Open Meetings Act, even if it's not required by statute,
Okay.
for transparency purposes.
I've done some language like that before. I can bring you some to look at.
I guess I'm actually not seeing your concern.
It says all meetings shall be held in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So if I'm a purely advisory board and I'm not required to comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act, then holding a meeting that doesn't follow the general rules of the Texas Open Meetings Act complies with the Texas Open Meetings Act.
But of the council, any board, commission, or committee of the city. So it applies to the council, any board, any commission, or any committee of the city.
Correct. But the
So-
Open Meetings Act does not.
Right, but
So if you're in compliance, you can be in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, as opposed to we'll follow the Texas Open Meetings Act as if it applies to this board or commission.
if you can make it clear, that's fine. I don't share your concern so much, but sure, I'm always for clearer language.
It's potentially not a concern, because like I said, we currently do post the agendas for every board or commission. But I just want to make sure that if that were to change in the future, we're prepared for that.
Well, I think, I agree with Commissioner Glicker. Clear is better.
Okay. And that's my presentation. There is one provision left, and Jennifer pointed out to me while we were sitting here that perhaps 13.09 severability should be the last provision, because generally that's toward the end in contracts, ordinances, that sort of thing. So
I don't disagree with that.
Especially if we're adding those other two provisions into 13, it
Right.
gives you a good opportunity to read.
to renumber.
Renumber.
I would think either 13.09 or 13.11 should be at the end, 13.11 being the non-substantive revisions. But the one in the middle was kind of confusing to me.
Yeah, I think you could swap 9 and 10,
Okay,
and then move 10 and 11 down past the two we're bringing in.
okay, we can look at that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other comments or concerns?
The train finally passed.
Yeah, just in time.
Have you seen it? There was a train stop behind you for an hour.
I did not look behind me at all this entire time.
So, if we have no other comments, it's 7:55. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jennifer.